Think about the last time you were writing an email, a comment online, or maybe an essay in English. Your thoughts are flowing smoothly, your fingers are moving across the keyboard, and then suddenly you stop right in the middle of a sentence because you've hit a noun. Your finger hovers there for a second while a small, frustrating question pops into your head. Do I say I am going to a store, or I am going to the store, or maybe just I am going to store with nothing in front of it at all? You try to remember the grammar rules from years of English class. Countable nouns, uncountable nouns, vowels, consonants, general statements, specific references. All of it comes flooding back at once, a tangled pile of abstract conditions, and eventually, you just guess. You pick one, cross your fingers, and hope it sounds right. Articles, those tiny little words, a, an, and the, are notoriously one of the hardest parts of English to fully master, especially if your native language doesn't use anything quite like them. Most textbooks respond to this by handing you page after page of rigid rules, followed by a long list of exceptions to memorize on top of that. It starts to feel like solving a small math problem every single time you want to use an ordinary noun. But here's something worth knowing. You don't actually need a giant list of rules memorized in your head. You just need one simple mental picture, and once that picture clicks, most of the confusion quietly disappears. Today, we're going to set aside the confusing textbook rulebook completely. I'll walk you through a simple visual way of thinking that makes choosing the right article feel almost automatic. Cover the handful of genuine exceptions actually worth knowing, and then run through some practical examples together so this skill really locks in. Let's start with that simple visual framework. To master articles without drowning in rules, it helps to think about how you and whoever you're speaking to are both looking at the world in that exact moment. Picture yourself standing in a room with a friend, both of you looking at a collection of objects in front of you. Every single time you choose an article, you're really just answering one quick question in your head. Do we both know exactly which one I'm talking about? Let's break this down into 3 simple visual categories. The first category is any random one, and this is where you use a or an. Picture a giant bowl filled with 50 identical apples sitting on a table. You turn to your friend and say, I want to eat an apple. Why an and not the? Because it genuinely doesn't matter which specific apple you end up grabbing. Anyone from that bowl works just fine. You use a or an when you're talking about a single object, and that object isn't anything special or specific, just one option among many. Use a when the following word starts with a consonant sound, like a car or a banana. Use as when it starts with a vowel sound, like an elephant or an hour. Think of a and an as a finger pointing generally toward a group, saying, give me one of those. Honestly, any of them will do. The second category is the only one, and here you use the word the. Now imagine that same bowl of apples has disappeared, and instead, there's just one single beautiful golden apple sitting alone on the table. You turn to your friend and say, I want to eat the apple. Why this time? Because there's only one option visible, and both you and your friend are clearly looking at that exact same object. You use the whenever both you and the listener already know precisely which specific thing you're talking about. Maybe it's because there's only one in the room, like the door. Maybe it's because there's only one in the entire world, like the sun, or the moon. Or maybe it's simply because you already mentioned it earlier in the conversation. If you say, I saw a cat yesterday, the cat was black, you switch to the second time, because your friend now knows exactly which cat you're referring to, the specific one you saw the day before. The third category is all of them, or the concept itself, and here, you actually use no article at all. Imagine you want to make a general statement about apples as a whole, saying that they're healthy. You're not pointing at a random one anymore, and you're not pointing at one specific apple either. You're talking about apples as an entire global concept. So you simply say, apples are good for you. You use no article when you're talking about plural items in general, or uncountable concepts as a whole. You say, I love music, not I love the music. You say, water is essential for life, not a water is essential. In both cases, you're treating the noun as one big general category, rather than any single item. If you keep coming back to that simple visual framework, asking yourself whether something is any random one, the specific one, or all of them together, you'll get things right roughly 80% of the time. But English does have a genuine reputation for quirks. So let's walk through the handful of common exceptions that tend to trip learners up, using that same visual logic to keep them easy to remember. The first exception involves sounds, not letters. A lot of textbooks tell you to use an before the letters A, E, I, O, and U. But that instruction is actually incomplete because what really matters is the sound you hear, not the letter you see written on the page. Take the word university. It starts with the letter U, but say it out loud, and you'll notice it actually begins with a Y sound, university. Since Y functions as a consonant sound, here we say a university. Now compare that with the word hour. It starts with the consonant letter H, but that H is completely silent when spoken. The very first sound you actually make is an O sound, hour. Because it sounds like it begins with a vowel, we say an hour. The rule of thumb here is simple. Trust your ears, not your eyes. The second exception involves shared daily spaces. You've probably noticed native speakers say things like, "I'm going to the bank," or "I need to go to the doctor," even when the person listening has no idea which specific bank or doctor they mean. This happens because of something we can call shared cultural spaces. In everyday life, we treat certain places, the bank, the supermarket, the post office, the doctor's office, as standard, familiar parts of a daily routine. When you say, "I'm going to the supermarket," you're referring to the specific one you personally, routinely use. The listener understands the concept of that particular destination in your life, even without needing extra detail, so we naturally use the. The third exception involves geographical names, and this is genuinely one area where a lot of learners get tripped up around countries and places. The good news is, the same underlying logic still applies here, once you understand how the name itself is built. For individual countries, you generally use no article at all. I live in Brazil. I visited Japan. But if a country's actual name represents a collection of states, islands, or republics joined together, it becomes a specific grouped entity, and in that case you do use the United States, the United Kingdom, the Philippines. You're using the here because you're pointing toward a specific, clearly defined collection of parts, not a single standalone place. Now let's put this visual framework into practice with a quick game, something we can call the eye tracker game. I'll give you a handful of sentences with blank spaces, and I want you to run through our visual logic in your head to choose the correct article before I share the answer with you. Here's the first one. Can you pass me blank pen on the desk? Think about the situation for a second. The sentence already mentions a pen sitting physically on the desk. Does the listener know exactly which pen you're asking for? Yes, clearly, the one sitting right there on the desk. It's not just any random pen somewhere in the world, it's that specific one. So the answer is, can you pass me the pen on the desk? Here's the second one. I want to buy blank new laptop next month. Think about your actual intent here. Have you already chosen the exact model, the store, the color? Not at all, you're really just thinking about the general goal of getting yourself a laptop. Pretty much any working laptop fits that idea. It's a single item, but not a specific one yet. So the answer is, I want to buy a new laptop next month. Here's the third one. Blank honesty is very important in a friendship. Take a look at the noun here, honesty. Is that a physical object you could point to? No, it's an abstract, uncountable concept. Are you talking about one particular person's honesty, or honesty as a general idea for everyone? Clearly, it's the general global concept. So the answer here is no article at all. Honesty is very important in a friendship. And here's the fourth one. She is reading a book. Blank book is very interesting. Look at these two sentences together as a pair. In the first sentence, you say a book, because it's the very first time it's being mentioned, just any random book at that point. But by the second sentence, the listener now knows exactly which book you mean, the one she's currently reading. It's moved from random to specific. So the answer is, she is reading a book. The book is very interesting. By quietly running this small mental game every time you come across an article while reading in English, you gradually train your brain to notice the relationship between the speaker and the noun in front of them. Over time, you stop guessing based on some memorized list from a textbook and start choosing naturally, based on real-world clarity, exactly the way native speakers already do, without even thinking about it. Articles were never designed as some kind of trap meant to make English deliberately difficult for you. They're really just small road signs. They quietly tell the listener whether you're pointing at a general concept, a random option, or one specific thing you both already share an understanding of. So stop stressing over 20 separate grammar conditions stacked on top of each other. Just ask yourself that one golden question. Do we both already know exactly which one I mean? Once that question becomes automatic, your communication becomes noticeably cleaner, smoother, and far more confident, almost overnight. So here's your action step for today. Take a look around whatever room you're sitting in right now, and pick out two ordinary objects nearby. Write one sentence using a or an, treating that object as something general. Then write a second sentence using the treating that same object as something specific, something you and someone else both clearly understand. Practice looking at the world around you through this simple lens, and watch how quickly the confusion around articles starts to fade away. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.